I gave my mom a $22,000 Rolex for her retirement, thinking it might buy one clean moment between us. Instead, she raised a glass in front of 37 Atlanta elites and toasted, "To my clueless daughter, covering messes with shiny gifts." Everyone laughed. I left. 2 days later, an unknown number texted, "Thank you for the watch. Your mom said it was in advance." My name is Aspen. I'm 34, and I live in Atlanta in the kind of glass and stone building where the concierge remembers your dog's name and pretends not to remember your scandals. I'm a senior partner at an elite PR agency, crisis management, reputational triage, the polite art of keeping powerful people from choking on their own choices. I've saved corporations after lawsuits, politicians after misstatements, founders after employees went public with receipts. I get paid to stay calm while rooms catch fire. My family has always treated that calm like it was their personal emergency kit. My mother is a public saint, chairwoman of a major children's charity foundation, the kind of woman who gets photographed handing out oversized checks and hugging toddlers in hospital wings. People in Atlanta say her name like a prayer at country clubs and galas. My father is her shadow, pleasant, vague, loyal in the way that keeps him comfortable. My sister is a consumer of my mother's status. She wears it like perfume and expects doors to open. What was normal in our family was me smoothing things over. I handled donors who got offended. I ghost wrote my mother's speeches so she sounded humble instead of hungry. I buried my sister's little explosions before they made the society pages. For 4 years, I ran the foundation's PR pro bono, work that would have been worth around $150,000 in billable hours if I'd treated my own blood like clients. I told myself it wasn't resentment. It was devotion. It was love. If I stayed useful, they'd eventually see me as a daughter instead of a function. That belief lasted right up until the moment my mother turned my gift into a punchline. The retirement dinner was staged like a coronation disguised as a farewell. 37 guests, board members, donors, political spouses, the kind of people who never raise their voices because they don't have to. White linen, crystal that made every sip sound expensive, candlelight soft enough to blur guilt. My mother had retired, which in her vocabulary meant stepping back publicly while keeping her hand on every lever behind the curtain. She sat at the center of the table in a cream dress that made her look innocent, smiling as if she'd personally invented generosity. I slid the Rolex box toward her like a peace offering. A vintage Pearlmaster she'd casually admired months ago, the kind of watch that doesn't just tell time, it tells a room who you are. She opened it slowly, letting the sparkle do its work. Heads turned. Smiles widened. My sister's eyes lit up with the exact shade of envy she called happiness. "Aspen," my mother said, voice warm for the audience. "You didn't have to." I should have known that sentence was never meant for me. When the champagne came, she stood. The room leaned in the way money does when it expects to be entertained. My mother raised her glass, looked right at me, and smiled like she was about to bless me. "To my clueless daughter," she said bright as a bell, "covering messes with shiny gifts." For a beat, my brain refused to translate. It tried to soften it, to make it something else. But then the laughter arrived, polite, synchronized, vicious. 37 people laughing because she had given them permission. My sister laughed the loudest, like she'd been waiting years for my mother to say it out loud. My father chuckled weakly, the way he always did when he wanted the room to believe we were fine. I stared at my mother. She kept smiling, eyes glittering, waiting for me to play my role. Laugh too, be a good sport, let her keep being adored. In my job, I count breaths when situations turn volatile. I know exactly what my body does right before I lose control. I know how to put my emotions in a locked drawer and keep talking. I counted to 3. Then I stood up, pushed my chair in quietly, and walked out without a word. Behind me, conversations stuttered and then resumed, because people like that always recover quickly when something uncomfortable happens to someone else. Outside, the night air smelled like magnolias and valet exhaust. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply went home to my quiet apartment and sat on my couch in my coat, like I'd forgotten how to take it off. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Thank you for the watch. Your mom said it was in advance." My stomach dropped before my mind finished reading. Advance. Like I'd paid someone upfront for work that hadn't happened yet. I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came fast, eager, trembly. "It's Gemma. I'm so sorry for texting you. Your mom said it was okay. She said the Rolex was in advance for the storm we're going to weather together. She said you'd understand. I won't let you down." Gemma, my mother's assistant at the foundation. 24. Bright-eyed. The type of young woman my mother collected. Eager, grateful, easy to shape. I stared at the messages until my vision blurred. My mother had given away the watch. Not to a donor, not to an auction, to her assistant, as a down payment. A leash made of diamonds and gold. A storm. I work in storms. I can smell them before the first thunder. Bribes don't happen unless someone is trying to control a narrative before it breaks. I didn't call my mother right away. Calling too soon is like showing your cards. Instead, I opened my laptop. As the foundation's PR consultant, I had access to the internal server, budgets, vendor lists, board minutes, confidential folders my mother assumed were safe because she believed I was loyal. I wasn't hacking. I wasn't sneaking. I was walking through doors I'd been handed because I was trusted to clean up. That night, I became my own client. At first, the expenses looked like what my mother would call fundraising. Flights, hotels, meals, designer stores labeled under donor relations. A private car service coded as outreach logistics. It was all dressed up in polite language. Then I cross-referenced. My mother's social media was a curated altar. Sunsets at resorts, smiling photos with donors, captions about serving the children. She posted enough to be admired, never enough to be pinned down. But dates are stubborn. They don't care about branding. A photo of my mother by an infinity pool in Palm Springs. Same weekend, the foundation card paid $12,480 to a luxury resort, categorized as board retreat. A series of pictures from a private jet. Her feet in expensive sandals, the wing framed in the window. That date matched a charge. Transportation, community engagement, $22,000. And then I found the email. Subject, IRS inquiry, document request. My breath caught. The message was forwarded from legal counsel to the board chair, my mother, marked confidential. The IRS was auditing the foundation. Not a routine review. A focused inquiry with specific expenditures highlighted. Discrepancies. Concerns. A polite letter with teeth. There was a hole in the budget large enough to swallow my mother's halo whole. I sat back and let the silence settle. I wasn't shocked for long. I'd spent years watching my mother turn philanthropy into theater. The surprise wasn't that she'd been stealing. The surprise was how casually she decided to sacrifice someone else to keep her hands clean. My phone rang. Mom. I let it ring twice, just enough to remind myself I still had control, then answered. Hi, I said, like my world wasn't cracking. Her voice came through warm and breezy, the voice she used for donors and cameras. Sweetheart, there you are. You vanished the other night. People were worried. Were they? I said. A pause. My mother disliked anything she couldn't script. We have an urgent matter, she continued, as if we'd returned to business. Closed board meeting Friday, 12 members, no staff except Gemma. I want you there to present a strategy. I didn't speak. My mother filled silence the way she filled rooms, by assuming she deserved it. Gemma has made mistakes, she said, with a sigh that sounded like martyrdom. Accounting errors, sloppy filings. She's young and, honestly, not very bright. I tried to guide her, but you know how these girls get. Emotional. Panicky. These girls, I repeated softly. She ignored it. The IRS is asking questions. We need to demonstrate decisive action. We'll terminate her. We'll report it. Make it clear we were betrayed by junior staff and acted immediately. You'll draft the narrative, the statement, the media plan if it leaks. So that was the plan. Blame the assistant. Offer her up like a sacrificial lamb. And have me, her daughter, write the script that destroyed Gemma's life. And the Rolex? I asked. Oh, that. My mother's tone sharpened slightly, irritated I was still attached to the symbol. I gave it to her to keep her calm. She was shaky. She needed to feel appreciated so she wouldn't run her mouth before we handle this properly. It was an advance. People need context to stay loyal. Advance. A bribe dressed as gratitude. I felt my mouth go dry. You humiliated me at dinner, I said, keeping my voice steady, and now you want me to frame an innocent woman to protect you. My mother gave a small laugh. Not kind. Not amused. The laugh of someone annoyed their tool had developed opinions. Don't be dramatic. This foundation matters. The children matter. You're the best at this, Aspen. It's your job to clean messes. There it was again. My role, spoken out loud. And Friday, she added, voice tightening. I want you calm. No emotions. You embarrassed me at dinner. I almost laughed because of course she saw it that way. My leaving wasn't a boundary. It was a public inconvenience. I'll be there, I said. My mother exhaled, relieved, as if she'd won. Good. I knew you'd come through. You always do. When the call ended, I sat very still. Not because I was frozen, because I was thinking. Crying wouldn't change anything. Bargaining wouldn't either. My mother didn't love me in the way I'd spent years begging for. She loved what I could do, and she was about to use my gift as a gag and my career as a weapon. I didn't cry. I prepared. For 48 hours, I moved like someone assembling a case. I pulled statements, vendor invoices, reimbursement forms. I printed out the IRS document request. I saved screenshots of my mother's Instagram posts and matched them to charges on the foundation card. I built a timeline that made her lies look as stupid as they were. Then I made 12 folders, thick, identical, undeniable. If my mother wanted a narrative, I'd give her one, just not the one she expected. Friday arrived bright and clean, the kind of day Atlanta uses to pretend it's not ruthless. The foundation office sat in a polished building with a lobby full of smiling children and framed photos. Donors loved walking past those faces. It made them feel generous before lunch. I walked through the lobby feeling like I was walking into a courtroom disguised as a nonprofit. Outside the boardroom, I saw Gemma. She stood near a potted plant like she wished she could turn into it. Her hands were clasped so tight her knuckles looked bleached. And there it was, the Rolex on her wrist, gleaming under fluorescent light like a shackle. When she saw me, relief flooded her face, pure, grateful, heartbreaking. "Ms. Hart," she began, then corrected herself quickly. "Aspen, I'm sorry. I don't know what to call you." "It's fine," I said. Her eyes darted to my folders. "Your mom said you're going to help. She said if I stay calm and follow the plan, everything will be okay." Her voice trembled. "I didn't steal anything. I didn't know the IRS." "I know," I said, and meant it. Gemma blinked, confused by the certainty. Before she could speak again, the boardroom door opened and my mother stepped out. She looked immaculate. Cream suit, pearls, hair perfectly arranged, the face of a woman who believed consequences were for other people. She smiled at me like we were starring in a family portrait. "There you are," she said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back half a pace, small enough to be deniable, clear enough to be felt. Her smile tightened for a fraction of a second. Then she turned to Gemma, voice syrupy. "Sweetheart, stop trembling," my mother said. "It makes you look guilty." Gemma flinched like she'd been slapped. My mother looked back at me. "Ready?" I lifted the folders slightly. "Very." Inside, the boardroom was all polished wood and controlled power. A long mahogany table, leather chairs, water pitchers that reflected light like mirrors. 12 board members in tailored suits, people who sponsored suffering and expected gratitude. My mother took the seat at the head of the table. My father sat 2 chairs down, loyal and pale. My sister had somehow found her way into the room, because my mother liked an audience and my sister liked attention. Gemma sat in the corner, perched like a defendant awaiting sentencing, hands folded over the Rolex as if it could protect her. My mother opened with a speech about integrity and legacy, words that sounded holy because she'd practiced them. She spoke of service and children and trust, while the IRS letter sat like a ghost in the server she thought no one would read. Then she turned toward me, smiling. "And now," she announced, "our best crisis specialist, my daughter, will present the plan to localize the damage caused by junior staff incompetence." She looked at me with that familiar expectation. "Be useful. Fix it. Sacrifice whoever I tell you to." I stood. The room's attention slid to me like a spotlight. "My task," I said, voice calm, "as a crisis manager, is to protect the reputation of the foundation." My mother nodded faintly, pleased. My sister's mouth curved into a smirk. I walked around the table and placed a folder in front of each board member. 12 quiet thuds against polished wood. The sound of consequences arriving. My mother's smile held for a beat, and then she noticed the thickness, the lack of branding, the weight of what I'd brought. Her eyes narrowed. "What is this?" she asked softly, but the softness had teeth. "Evidence," I said. Board members opened the folders slowly, as if they could control reality by controlling speed. A man with silver hair frowned at the first page. A woman with a diamond brooch blinked, then lifted her glasses, rereading as if her vision was the problem. Someone sucked in a sharp breath. My father leaned forward, confused. "Aspen," he murmured, warning in his voice. "What are you doing?" "Doing my job," I said, without looking at him. My mother's voice sharpened. "This is not the time for your dramas." Dramas. The word she used when anyone else's pain inconvenienced her. "In the folders," I continued, "you'll find unedited financial reports and documentation of misused funds, personal charters charged as board travel, luxury resorts labeled donor relations. Designer purchases coded as outreach. Each item is cross-referenced with vendor receipts and publicly posted travel dates. The room went cold. One of the board members, an older man who'd always laughed too loudly at my mother's jokes, looked up slowly. "Are you saying the chair used foundation funds for personal benefit?" I let silence sit for a second. Silence is pressure. It forces people to fill it with truth. "I'm saying," I replied, "that the greatest threat to the foundation's reputation is not a junior employee. It's leadership." Gemma made a small sound in the corner, like relief and terror colliding in her throat. My mother stood so abruptly her chair scraped. "You ungrateful," she started, her mask cracking. I cut in gently, professionally, the way I'd redirect a hostile client on live television. "I will not participate in framing an innocent assistant," I said, "and I will not write a strategy to conceal financial crimes. As of this moment, my agency is terminating its contract with the foundation due to an irreconcilable ethical conflict." The board members began talking over each other. Questions, disbelief, the sharp hum of people realizing their own names might get dragged into the mud. My mother snapped at them, then snapped at me. "Sit down," she hissed, voice low and vicious. "Now!" My sister unbelievably laughed under her breath. "Oh my God," she whispered, delighted. "She's actually doing it." My father's face had gone gray. He looked at my mother, then at the folders, then at me like he was watching the floor split. "Aspen," he said, voice cracking, "think about what you're doing. Think about the family." The family. The leash word. I looked at him with something that wasn't hatred, just clarity. "I am," I said quietly, "for the first time." A board member asked for legal counsel. Another demanded immediate suspension of spending authority. Someone used the phrase criminal exposure, like they were tasting poison. My mother's eyes flashed, furious and wet, the first real emotion I'd seen from her in years. "You always wanted to punish me," she spat. "You've been cold since you were a child. You think you're better than us." I kept my voice even. "You called me cold at dinner," I said. "You were right. Cold is useful when you're trying not to drown with someone who keeps pulling you under." Then I turned slightly toward Gemma. "Keep the watch," I told her. My mother snapped. "No." "I'm serious," I continued, still calm. "You're going to need an attorney. If you have to, sell it. Don't let anyone convince you that loyalty to someone who uses you is a virtue." Gemma stared at me, stunned. Tears slid down her face without sound. I gathered my bag slowly. Every unhurried movement said the same thing. "I'm not afraid." As I walked toward the door, my mother's voice followed me, venom wrapped in velvet. "You'll regret this," she said. "You'll be alone." I paused at the doorway, hand on the frame, not giving her the satisfaction of my full body turned toward her. "Maybe," I said, "but I won't be owned." Then I left. By that evening, the story was already moving through Atlanta the way gossip does, fast, gleeful, dressed as concern. People who'd laughed at my mother's toast suddenly remembered she'd always been a little intense. Donors asked careful questions. Country clubs went quiet.